So we typically are only working with market proven products that have a history of success from Canada. So anything that we bring into this country, we know has worked with patients in Canada or in the recreational market to a degree that we can quantify.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Harmonia Podcast. We are joined here today by James Smith from 4C Labs. Hi, James.
Hello, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. James is going to be speaking to us today about some of the amazing work that they're doing in their lab. But before we go into that, James, would you like to formally introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is James Smith. I'm Canadian. I'm one of, sorry, I guess I should, I'm one of the co-founders of 4C Labs, along with Greg Dobbin, our CEO, and Dave Farquharson, who's chairman of the board. We are Canadian, but we have been working in the UK for quite a few years at this point in time, in and out for almost 5 years now. We are based in Guernsey, where we have a cultivation license that we are hoping to get going at some point in the near future. We are also Schedule 1 licensed importer of medical cannabis in the United Kingdom, and we work with a number of Canadian suppliers, increasing number over the next 6 months, who are in the market and will be coming into the market to serve British patients, which will be a combination of flower medicines as well as a number of oil-based medicines as well.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you guys are doing? Because I know that over at your labs, you're doing something a little bit differently, which I personally find very intriguing. And I think that a lot of the people in the industry, patients alike, would love to hear more about.
Okay, well, at this point, our labs are not quite built, and we're relying upon the use of other people's labs. But we are a company that is, I mean, everybody will say this, but we like to think that we're truly a patient focused company. Many of the people inside of the company are patients. I am a patient, and we are, so the belief was the motivation for the company is to provide a more cost effective and higher quality experience for the patients of this country. And so when we say that, what we mean is that we are in the process of supplying and bringing on board a number of companies that we work directly with. So we work directly with EU GMP suppliers. We bring them into our facility in the UK. So we try to keep the price as low as possible by preventing as many people as possible from touching the product. So that allows us to bring the price down for the patient. So our focus is really on giving a value proposition that is superior to other producers in the marketplace, but most specifically the illicit market. We're not here to try to take business from the existing players that are in the space. What we hope to do is offer this value proposition of higher quality materials that are safe, that are ethical, that are tested, and that are consistent to the patient of the United Kingdom, and to bring patients out of the illicit market who are currently purchasing what is medicine for them, but doing so in an illegal manner. We think that if we can offer them create significant savings for them on an annual basis and provide them with a higher quality product that they can count on being there and being the same, we believe that will be successful for us. But we've only been in the market now for about 3, just coming up to 4 months. We've launched a couple of products. We've learned a lot of lessons, and we will continue to launch a whole series of new products that will be coming out over the next 6 months. We have a variety of price points for the different products, and those products will be coming into the market over the next period of time. And when we work with a supplier, we try to focus in on a variety of genetics that we think can serve patients in a manner where they have a daytime product, after work time product, and a sleepy time product. So we look to, we have a not complex, but we have a set of measurements that we use when we're working with a producer to identify the value of that product by its sizing, by its level of terpenes, by its THC percentage, by the visual appearance of the product. Despite the fact that this is medicine, the bag appeal, as what it is known as in Canada, is important to the patients. And we are here to serve them. And if that's a requirement, then we want to ensure that we are giving them what they want and what is effective for their conditions as best we can.
Yeah. And so you mentioned a few things, right? So I'm just trying to figure out how to dissect here. So you mentioned trying to bring similar quality to that of the illicit market, because ideally the whole point is trying to get them off illicit substances and onto something much safer. Um, as somebody who has absolutely no experience in lab work or anything that goes into your sector, and I'm assuming a lot of patients like myself have no idea either. Can you just explore that a little bit further, as in how you guys?
Okay, so we typically are only working with market proven products that have a history of success from Canada. So anything that we bring into this country, we know has worked with patients in Canada or in the recreational market to a degree that we can quantify. And in particular, what we're looking for is specific genetics that do specific things, and looking for anecdotal evidence for that proof in Canada before we bring it here. As an example, we have a breeder that we've been working with for many years who's been breeding in Canada for us. He's been breeding for over 30 years, but he's been working for the British Columbia Compassion Club, which was the original Compassion Club in North America, if I'm not mistaken, certainly the first in Canada. He was one of their growers for over 2 decades, and we know that his genetics perform with patients in a specific manner because we know that the track record is there. Because they keep coming back for the product and they keep saying positive things about the product for certain conditions. Now, while that's not a real world evidence study or a restricted clinical trial, it is anecdotal evidence does mean something. So we try to hone in on those products that have proven success for general conditions that we're trying to address here. And we test, we retest, we focus group test, we then check. We now make sure that we are there. We now have a product control person that is with the at the facility when products are being packaged to make sure that they are meeting the spec that we have set forward, because we have a sizing spec, we have a visual spec, and we have a nose and effect spec. So all of these things need to be predetermined before we bring it to the country. So we're not just saying, okay, well, this is inexpensive and it's got a high THC, so let's bring it into the country and see what happens. We want to know as much as we possibly can about it before it even arrives here. And so we are at this very moment, our product testing probably 3 different suppliers right now that we'll be hopefully bringing into the country over the next 6 months. So this is it's a relatively rigorous process that we engage in. It's not free to do this, and we have somebody that is full time in Canada working with all of our producers to make sure that everything is being done the way that it's supposed to be done.
Okay. Thank you so much for explaining that. And yeah, it sounds like you guys do a lot of thorough work. And without going into too much of it, like there is a proven track record here in the UK in terms of the feedback that you guys are getting for a lot of your products. I mean, for myself personally, I can vouch. I think a lot of the work that you guys are doing is sorcery, because I have no idea how the medication is that good. I'm like, what is this sorcery? Like, there is some witchcraft going on there, but it's okay. You don't have to tell us your secrets.
Well, it's sorcery is called hard work. So we identified products years ago that we wanted to work with. These companies that we're working with, we have been working with for many years, and it was 2.5 years for one of them just to get them to, because they're very they take stability very seriously. We take stability very seriously. We take the rules and regulations very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're always on the right side of them. We have a phenomenal compliance and science side of our company, and they do the hard work. They are the ones that do the difficult task of onboarding companies, doing the technical quality agreements, auditing the facilities, making sure that all the paperwork is in accordance with Home Office and MHRA regulations around EU GMP production, as well as, of course, all the onboarding of the company and then the actual importation. So there is it seems like sorcery, but when you are at it, it's really just hard work by a bunch of really smart people who are not me.
So basically, what you're trying to say is they all went to Hogwarts.
No, they're all They all believe in what we're doing, and if I'm honest, we're probably five men sailing, or I should say, five women sailing a 10-woman ship because our compliance team is all female. But we they're experienced. They've been working in controlled drugs for some time. Most of them have at least 5 years experience in the cannabis sector specifically, and I'm just very fortunate to have them as members of my team. Um, and it feels like magic, but it is getting stability on products takes a lot of time. The groups we work with, one of the I don't think I can mention any names. One of the one There's not a company that we work with that doesn't have a breeder, at least one breeder, who in their organization has 30 years experience in cultivation of cannabis. And these companies were all often licensed for medical cannabis production before recreational production came into existence in Canada. So there's a long track record there, and they understand the needs of patients, and they want to they want to access the European markets, and so they've gone out and got the certifications that they need to be able to do so. And we're hopeful that the British people will find that their products work for them.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you guys over at 4C Labs. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I think your dedication towards supporting patients in the long run is just fantastic. And I know that as a patient myself, medical cannabis is very, very expensive. So, where we can drive costs down to support people like me and to introduce more people like me as well who might not be as financially stable but do require the medication, I think the work that your lab and everybody there is doing is absolutely fantastic. I will continue to call it sorcery because I have, no, I'm sorry, but it's just, I have never felt such relief as I have with one of your products. And for the record, I am not advocating for anything. Um, this is medication. You must always speak to your doctor about any changes to any medication. They're the ones who are familiar with your healthcare. And even when I changed over, I spoke to my doctor. So please, this is to explain just to explain, okay? I'm not giving any advice here. It's just to explain the amazing work that 4C Labs is doing. And I think you also touched on sorry, you mentioned genetics a few times. Again, I am not a scientist. I have no idea what that means, and I assuming some of the general public might not know what that means either. Can you just
So, well, the word that's most commonly used is strain, but a strain is technically a virus. So it doesn't really. We don't believe that it has a place in the world of medicine or cannabis, and most people in Canadian cannabis utilize the word genetics or cultivar when they're discussing the different types of cannabis. So yeah, so I was recently at a facility that has thousands of different phenotypes or cultivars in tissue culture, and I came across one, for example, that was only 21% and didn't really sell very well in the Canadian rec market. But the anecdotal evidence that the company got back in terms of customer feedback was that women found it to be exceptionally good for endometriosis. And this is an interesting, for period pain. And but unfortunately, it's no longer a commercial crop in Canada because at 21%, it can't win the THC war. But so when I come across a genetic like that seems to have strong anecdotal history around female health and period pain, that's something that interests me a great deal because that's what we're doing. We're in the business of medicine. We're not here to jump the THC shark tank numbers, which is what many people are doing. We're trying to focus in on what is working or what seems to be working based around the evidence that is in front of us. Again, back to our breeder, his particular genetic that I'm not sure if I can mention it, but I won't, but his particular genetic only runs at 19%. Now we've had that tested at 3.5% total terps on a 40 terp test, which is what would be considered standard commercial testing in Canada. And the anecdotal evidence suggests that from even heavy consumers that this is a product that doesn't seem to create genetic fatigue. Patients seem to be able to use it for extended periods of time without using anything else and find consistent relief from it. And the longevity of the dosing seems to be consistently much longer than some products that are much higher in THC levels. And so we attribute that to is the higher percentage of minor cannabinoids and higher levels of terpenes. So when we're talking about medicine, we're really trying to address the conditions of the patient, which is why we really try to work with products that we know have a history of performing in a specific way. Um, Generally, everybody is different. Everybody's, and my system is different than yours. My system is different than my neighbors. But we can see some general trends, and we try to pay attention to those general trends. And at the end of the day, we don't want to be as good as the illicit market. We want to be superior to the illicit market. We need to be able to offer people something that inclusive of prescribing costs, which vary from you know, 50 quid to 300 quid a year. We want to make sure that when you include those costs and you combine that with the cost of medicine, we can empirically look at our products and go, well, if we're selling this for X amount, the value of that in the illicit market is X amount, and it needs to be at least a 30% differential minimum. Bare minimum, it needs to be at least 30% less than this product. And we also believe from my travels and from my recent campaign to Canada, where I tested many different products, many different flowers from many different producers. I think I can say with some level of confidence that the higher end product is simply like nothing this country's ever seen before in terms of product quality and visual appeal. Canadians are taking it to a different level. They really are. The improvements over the last 3 years have seen most every major producer go from tray dry to hang dried only. They were using machines initially, and now they're back to hand trimming, which is because you've got to protect those trichromes, which are where much of the medicine is. And by not hang drying and by using a machine, you're breaking apart the flower, and you're losing a lot of that medicine. And they've learned that to get a higher quality product will sell, whereas a mediocre quality product has a difficult chance of doing that. And the very crowded landscape that is the Canadian cannabis industry.
Okay, thank you. So, what advice would you give to the market here? Because, like you mentioned, you're quite new to the market here in the UK, but you are quite experienced in the market in Canada. So, is there anything that we can lend from Canada's medical cannabis sector?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is to do R&D into uh, novel drug development. So my dream is to we know that the flower market is the largest part of the market in this country, but we also believe in being able to try to get the information and get the patient feedback from specific genetics that we're working with, so that we can eventually be able to take that knowledge and transition it into oil-based medicines that we can produce exactly the same way every single time, which is impossible with the flower. I mean, exactly the same. And for whether that's, say, daytime pain for cancer patients that are going through chemotherapy, we know that one of our breeders' genetics has been very successful at that. So I would love to be able to move towards um, finding out what is it that about that specific genetic that is working so well for patients versus other genetics, and then turn that into something that we can eventually get into an oil-based medicine that is full spectrum, that has natural terpenes present in it, has all the minor cannabinoids in it, and then ideally, you know, hopefully have a much larger uptake and a much more mainstream uptake from patient cohorts for medicines that are not flower based. That is our goal, but the reality is to build this company, we need to attend to what the patients currently want, and the patients want flower, and that is, although we do have oil based medicines, we have a phenomenal product coming out of Europe that is a oral spray that is nanotechnology that has a very quick onset, and we also have some oils that we're bringing in from Canada that are have a long track record of success in Canada, and will be um, what we think priced to a point where we can attract patients from outside of the current patient pool. We think a lot of it has to do with economics and quality, and I think we're trying to attend to both of those issues.
So basically, you would like the UK to see a more standardized approach and mirror some of the work that you guys are doing across the board.
Well, I would say that Canada made some errors. Canada made many errors. In fact, we had a medical system that I mean, I could. This is a whole other conversation. But I think there's one thing that we should be doing in this country is more R&D. Canada did not do that. So when I came out of research and development. So when I came out of hospital after a horrible mountain biking accident, where let's just put it this way, they had to drain 2.5 liters of blood from my lungs. And when I came out of that, yeah, so when I came out of that surgery, there was no medical cannabis products available. And despite the fact that at this point, medical cannabis had been available in Canada since 2001, this was 2019. No one has done, none of the major Canadian companies have done any real research around the endocannabinoid system. They have not really tried to create finished goods that attend to specific issues. And since recreational cannabis has become legalized, there's been zero effort on any part and the medical cannabis numbers have dropped off from about 1.6 million Canadians were on medical cannabis prior to recreational cannabis, and that number's probably been halved to 800,000. So unfortunately, we didn't do the work, and I think in this country, with its great history of as a long biopharma history here, I'm hoping that we can go back to a time where we can import the raw materials for the medicine from Canada, where they're very cost effective, and create bespoke, specific treatment medicines in this country. And I think the opportunity is very much in play, and there is. I hope to see that in this country, but financing is difficult, as I'm sure you know. The industry has seen a complete dearth in financing, and until we are able to do it on our own steam, we're simply going to have to carry on what we're doing, which is importing flowers and oils that are made by other parties, and then hopefully someday we'll have the funds to engage in this research ourselves.
Do you know, you said something actually that really touched me there, which was as soon as the recreational market became legal, um, medical cannabis sort of just dried up. Yeah. Well, okay, I would love to not see that happen here in the UK because I'm a firm advocate for holistic care. And I believe that it's not just the medication that supports you, it's all of the stuff that you do alongside it. So it's important to take your medication, but your medication should enable you to exercise, to have a correct diet, to be able to even do the little things like going out, socializing. Um, in order to take care of your well being, it's not just one approach. You have to have, yeah, a holistic approach, right? And what actually breaks my heart is there are a lot of people, especially cannabis naive people, that would still require the clinical intervention because medical cannabis, at the end of the day, is a symptom reliever. It relieves your symptoms, it doesn't actually cure diseases. So if people are using it as a symptom reliever and that is it, that means the underlying source of their problem, because it could be physical health, it could be mental health. I know with mental health it's a little bit more different because once you relieve those symptoms you are actually able to do those things without realizing, such as meeting your friends again, leaving the house. So it's a little bit different in that sense where it is with physical health, because with physical health you are effectively managing your symptoms but you are not managing the actual condition. So that work still needs to be put in and not forgotten about. So I really hope that in the UK, because over time we are leaning more and more towards a recreational market being legalized, and I would really love for the medicine to not disappear as a result. A lot of people would benefit from a clinical intervention, um, and that is something that we really shouldn't. It shouldn't be an oversight.
I completely agree, and I mean, while we could debate the timelines around, I mean, eventually recreational cannabis will be a thing in the United Kingdom. I personally think it's probably quite a few years away. I think plus 7 years, and I think that gives us lots of time as an industry to get our act together and to try to develop some bona fide medicines, ideally medicines that the NHS would adopt and utilize for cancer patients, for neurological issues, for all the conditions that we address, PTSD, ADHD, chronic pain. the list goes on. And you know, having that focus on the medical aspect of it, I think will um, should drive this industry forward. And but let's, in my opinion, good cannabis is good medical cannabis as long as it's repeatable and it's clean, uh, and it's it's the efficacy is there. And yeah, I think we have the time in this country to get it right. Uh, and I hope that I think that people's mentalities are changing towards plant-based medicines, which is our original form of medicine. I mean, if we really look at this, cannabis has only been out of our diets for over 100 years. Other than before that, it was part of most of the medicines that were across the globe that were consumed. Um, are the animals that we ate as meat consumed hemp and hemp seed as part of their diet. Cannabinoids were in the entire food chain, and I think public perception is now slowly shifting away from powdered and pill based medicines to seeing cannabis as an alternative, not only an alternative, but a legitimate form of medicine for them. But as you've noted, we agree that medical cannabis is only one spoke in the wheel of health, is how I kind of express it. And that it has to be balanced out with good sleep, good exercise, nutrition. Uh, you are the mental health of the five people you spend the most time with, and if you're spending all of your time with toxic people that are eventually that are just hurting you, well, you need to be with people who have a positive mental attitude and who are moving their lives forward, and that's just as important as what medicine you take, is who you spend your time with and what you put into your body. While you eat ultra processed foods, and consume too much alcohol and don't do anything, medical cannabis is just a band-aid. That's all that it is. And so we would like to think that we would like that. I think if we industry take things seriously, then we hope that patients will take things seriously, and hope in turn that they'll take things seriously.
Honestly, all I can say is amen to that. And what sort of feedback would you give cannabis naive patients who are considering a prescription but are very on the fence about it?
Well, I would suggest that they have a conversation with their doctor, uh, have a conversation with their friends and families, ideally talk to some other patients that might be able to give them some insight. I would suggest that you follow the doctor's guidelines, which are go slow and go low to begin with. I would suggest you're probably looking at a combination of lower THC flowers, ideally with low dosing, or in combined with oil-based medicines. Um, there's 50-50 medicines out there that are available between THC and CBD, which will have a lower impact. Oils, I'm not a doctor, I'll qualify this, but oils are a little bit different because of their onset time. So it can be a challenge for people to find the right dosing with oils and be patient at the same time. I would speak to the fact that we would love to be bringing in lower THC level of flowers, but the reality is the way that the monograph is set up for flowers is that it needs to be you need to maintain a 10% variance up or down on the product for at least 6 months of shelf life. And yes, so this is one of the requirements, and you need to have three from three different lots that all say that this flower will be stable at 21% plus or minus 10% for at least 6 months in its packaging. This is one of the things that I don't think a lot of patients really understand, is the massive amount of time and effort that goes into producing properly compliant medicines. We only work with properly compliant medicines and properly compliant producers. I think it's we may not we other people may do things differently, but that's how we do it. And so when you're looking at, say, there's a product that has 4% THC and 15% THCV, which is sort of like an energizing appetite suppressant cannabinoid minor, which is non-psychoactive. That 4% means it can only vary by 0.4% up or down. Now, to be having a plant to be able to keep that variance between 4.4 and 3.6% THC, proving to be very difficult. Even a 12% flower, you only have a variance of 1.2. So it's not that they can't grow the plant consistently. It's that is the shelf life over 6 months going to be able to maintain those very, very fine levels of THC? So we would love to see, sub, let's call it 16% THC, have a larger variance allowance so that we're trying to bring in lower level THC products, but it's just so hard because of the regulations. Whereas if you have a 30% flower, that let's just say you can go up to 33 and down to 27, you have a 6% variance there, which is significant. It's a significant, not that difficult to achieve. But the great irony is a government that would like to see sort of the THC side of things get lower, the actual lower levels of flowers is more difficult to achieve than the higher levels of flowers around stability of the product.
So is this the reason why they're taking a lot of the lower ones out of the market? Because I'm noticing that there's been a shift towards removing a lot of the lower ones and adding more higher strain ones.
Well, I can't speak for the other producers, but I know that for ourselves, we have been trying to bring in these sort of like 15%, 16%. Um, we have a specific genetic that's very well known, that one producer is trying to produce, but we're just struggling with the third batch. And the last, we thought we would be bringing it in. We had a pickup date for February, but the last batch was a little out of spec. I think it was down to like, I don't know, it was like 14.2. It was just out of spec. So we have to do another batch and hope that that batch comes in spec. So it's difficult, but we believe that these products could be very popular with the patients because we think that people um, want to go about their day and be able to get things done. And if people don't want to be locked on a couch drooling all day long, they need to do things. And we we're, we think that some of these genetics that are lower in THC could be very popular with people if they gave them a chance. So we're working on it, and I know that other companies are trying to do the same thing. But I am afraid that we may get into this race of towards high numbers of THC is what we've seen in the North American recreational markets, which is the patients. I hope that this doesn't happen here, but that they continue to purchase lower THC level products because there are, I'm really am looking for the effects. We'll be bringing in a product that's running at 19%. Um, uh, I guess I can't names of what, but it will be a higher priced product. It's a craft product. It's grown in a very small room. It's very much these products take a great deal of time and energy to raise. So even though it'll be a higher THC product, it will be a higher price product in the general spectrum of the price points of 5 to 10 quid, which is the market pricing right now. And other products that will be higher in THC will be significantly less. So we're hoping that the patients in this country don't just equate THC levels with what is qualifies as good medicine because the two do not have anything together. Like there are genetics that have very high levels of THC, which are great for things like sleep and sort of acute and chronic pain. Um, but that's just two conditions. And anxiety and people who have mental health issues, we think that they are probably much better suited to lower levels of THC.
And it's quite interesting that you say that because, I mean, I have a list of diagnoses, but pain and inflammation are the two most annoying ones. Actually, no, there's a lot of other annoying ones, but they are the two most consistently annoying ones. I actually tend to find, okay, fine, when you're in pain, you do need a higher THC, just that for me, my body. However, I tend to find that when I have inflammation, because sometimes I can be really swollen, but not be in a significant amount of pain, a lower THC and higher CBD or just pure CBD tends to have a better effect on my inflammation than if I took something that had a higher CBD. So I think it's really important that people have these discussions with their doctor and explore different medications because, like you said, I feel like a lot of people in the UK are like, okay, well, that has a higher THC, so it must be better. And I know for myself, when I first started, I assumed the same thing too. It wasn't until I started dropping down because I like to be compass mentis. So it wasn't until I was dropping down that I realized that actually a lower strain works so much better for managing inflammation and some of my other symptoms. Whereas when I have pain and more severe symptoms, a higher THC works. So it's all about dosages, and I guess figuring out what works for your body, and definitely not getting trapped in that cycle where you believe, oh well, higher THC means better medication. It just means, as far as I'm concerned, higher THC just means higher THC.
Yeah, it's just one of the compounds that's in it, and it doesn't. And there's also questions around the legitimacy of some of the testing that's done. The I won't question whether they're correct or not, but certainly in North America, there has been a great deal of abuse around falsifying lab tests in order to create higher sales, and the consumer has no idea. Um, so the yeah, the but uh, yeah, it's dosage is very important. How you manage your titration, very important. And we, part of the reason why we take three, we always try to work with three different genetics from an individual producer is precisely because we want to be able to offer the patient a choice. We don't think that every patient should be on all three of these, but we think that it's that we believe that good medical cannabis is there is a cabinet there of different choices for the time of day, for the condition, for your mood, for whether it's a Saturday or whether it's a work day. And we want to be able to offer those. We hope to have about 30 different SKUs in the marketplace, like 30, probably 21 different flowers over the next 6 months, and probably 8 to 9 different oil-based medicines. In that product mix, we hope that we can satisfy any patient and any demand.
And we're going to leave it at that. So, James, thank you so much for coming on. For anybody that's interested in some of the work that 4C Labs is doing, the links will be in the description. James, thank you again for coming on. And again, thank you, 4C Labs, for all of the amazing work that you are doing for medical cannabis and patients. And we look forward to seeing everyone back next week, where we will be discussing patient journeys. Thanks again, James.
Thank you so much, Berta. A pleasure to be here. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Talk soon. Bye.